around the little neighborhood where we lived into my snow park, build jumps and wooden rails and stuff. Watching the sunset from the top of the mountains, it's special for sure. If that's what you want to do, then do it, and eventually the money will come in. So don't worry about the money. If that's what you want to do, if that's where your heart is, then do it. Yeah, and I think about that quite often.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Athletic Stance. On today's episode, we have Todd Easterbrook. He is an award-winning British Columbia-based photographer, often working for brands within the action, adventure, and outdoor industry. He helps tell their stories through visually striking imagery. Having spent countless days in the backcountry, numerous nights in the woods, and weeks on end in an RV, he is no stranger to working in extreme environments. Although a lover and seeker of beautiful natural light, he understands both the importance of technical aspects of artificial lighting and, more importantly, how to combine them seamlessly. Until recently, Todd focused largely on action sports, and he is now pursuing a wider range of subjects within the commercial world. On this episode, we talk about a lot of things, how Todd got into the action sports photography world, among others, and it's a little bit of a shorter episode, so I will just let the episode do the talking. I hope you guys enjoy, and as always, I really appreciate a rating, a review, and hitting that subscribe button if you love this show. So thanks again.
I'm based in Pemberton, BC, originally from Montreal, on the east coast of Canada. I got into photography when I first came into Whistler in, I believe it was 2000, first season. Got a point and shoot camera for Christmas that year before coming out from my uncle, and kind of just snapping photos around. And I was kind of in a transition phase, if you will, at that time. Not sure what I wanted to do with my quote unquote life, and had a bit of a knack for photography. Got a lot of compliments on my photos and stuff, and got me kind of thinking about it. And I was always big into snowboarding. Kind of realized that I like the images in the magazines just as much as the action. Like, I'd always look at who took the photo and stuff. And yeah, that kind of just got me more interested in photography. And then when I went back to Quebec after that 5 months out west, I enrolled in some non-credit photo classes. It was just one night a week. I did that, kind of like the introduction to black and white photography, and then the introduction, or black and white photography 2 or something like that. And then while I was at that school, I found out about a commercial photography program, and it was purely photography, no other classes or electives or anything like that. So that really appealed to me. And it was in the evenings. So it'd be either 5 or 6 at night till 10 or 11. I did that for 2.5 years. Knew that when I was done that, I was going to come back out to Whistler and make a go at it. And that was back in 2004. So I've been here since.
Sweet. Yeah, that's awesome. It's cool to find a passion that you can pursue, and then like when you do pursue your passion, like a lot of the times doors that you may not have seen or known existed will kind of just open for you. And how did that transition go when you moved out there? Obviously did you have any job offers? Did you know what you were going to do? Like how did that evolve the way that
I came out with probably $1,000 in my bank account. To be honest, when I first came out that first winter, I hardly even picked up the camera. I think I just shredded POW every day and worked in a restaurant at night, kind of the typical kind of Whistler lifestyle. And I think partially was just because for 2.5 years, it's just going to school and that, and then just being so kind of regimented with that, and working during the day and going to school in the evenings, and not really having much free time, and wasn't even really riding that much then, to be honest, when I was going to school. Yeah, I ended up kind of snowboarding a lot. And it wasn't until kind of a few years later that I, realized I needed to kind of start focusing on that again. And I also went to school in film, like I learned on film and that. So it's kind of a weird transition time when I came out of school. It was 2004. I think we learned a bit of digital stuff like in our last semester, and by the time I graduated, people that were just starting were learning what we learned in our last semester. So it was totally changed. And by a couple years later, there was no more even darkroom in the school. And yeah, so when I came out, I still had a film camera and I was still shooting on slide film and stuff. And it was maybe a year or two after that I kind of switched to digital. I might have gotten a digital point and shoot before I got a DSLR.
Yeah, totally. Do you still have a preference? Like, some people kind of have like this nostalgic, like they like shooting on film just because it's like there's like a nostalgia to it, or like some sort of like a.
Yeah. No, I don't miss it at all. I still had a film camera for a while and kept it, thought I'd use it. I had still, rolls of slide film in my fridge and stuff, but never really used it. So finally just sold it to someone who would get some use out of it and who was into shooting film. But depending what you're doing, I guess. But I feel with action sports and just, the amount of images that you're shooting on any given day and stuff, just the cost of, film processing and developing and stuff like that. But I mean, some people are still doing really cool stuff like Jerome Tenno and that, but, processing and, shooting really older kind of film styles and that. And, yeah, I respect it. I think it's really cool. It's not something I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's tough. You can mess up all the work that you did in a matter of a couple seconds just by doing the wrong thing in the darkroom, and especially in a digital age where you have the cell phone all the time, like, like you got to keep the cell phone out of the darkroom. And I think, like, I took a photography class in high school. And it was fun. It was fun learning about the darkroom and learning about the processes that were involved. But, I've got like a little Canon Rebel, I think it's like a T4i, old camera. Yeah. But it's just so much easier with a DSLR. And then, the process of uploading it onto your computer and, going into Lightroom or going into Photoshop and making adjustments from there. It's, just a completely different game.
Yeah. I'm still glad that I learned on film because I think it made the learning curve that much easier when I did switch to digital. Just already knowing kind of how to expose and stuff without having to look at the back of a screen and, kind of knowing the science of it, I guess you could say.
Yeah, totally. Not just having like a light meter and adjusting, like it's good to know the science behind aperture and shutter speed and what you're trying to do with a shorter range of focus versus a longer range of focus and everything there, like it's still the same machine. It's just, evolved. So
if I were to do film, I would kind of go even further back and do like, medium or large format kind of stuff. Because to be honest, like just shooting like a high-end film camera, just right before digital, it's not going to be really much different unless you're, tweaking stuff in the darkroom a lot. But I think it'd be cool to someday, to maybe get a large format camera. But I don't think I would try to shoot action sports so much, but just landscape and stuff like that could be cool to get back into that. And it's just slowed down like the process a lot more.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like a slow process for action sports doesn't really tie in. So
yeah, no, it doesn't really fit the vibe of the whole action sports lifestyle.
The athletes want to know if you got the shot. If they need to do it again, you're like, yeah, I'll let you know in 2 weeks kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it was a whole nother animal. I think I have a lot of respect for like, people like Brent Benson and Lee Cohen who, were shooting back in the day and that it was like you had to know that your settings were appropriate for the, the context and the situation to ensure that you got some sort of a shot. And then, like there's still quite a bit of uncertainty or unknown that's in that.
Which I think is also the appeal to it now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's, we're used to just having everything, so instant and, at our disposal. And so I think it's kind of nice to have the opposite, right? So,
yeah.
I don't think it'll go away. I think it'll still be like, like vinyl, like it'll be a place for it for sure.
Yeah, it's not, I don't think it'll be a lost art. I think there are too many fanatics out there that just, they love it for what it is. So I couldn't find too much about you. I tried to do some research, but I couldn't find too much about you. I found a lot of your photos, but I did find like grew up skateboarding on the East Coast, and that's how you got into snowboarding.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. What age did you start skateboarding, and then when did you make that transition to snowboarding?
I think I maybe started skateboarding when I was 7 or 8 years old. Have an older brother, 5 years older than me, and I think one of his friends gave me a little banana skateboard fiberglass thing when I was like 8 or so, and then got a wooden board from the equivalent of I got a Zellers. And you guys don't have Zellers in the States, but I don't know, like typical like Walmart nowadays, we'll say, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
General store kind of thing, and yeah, I was super into skateboarding. So, grew up in the suburbs of Montreal until I was 12 or 13, and we had a cottage north of there where I spent my summers. And then when my parents split up, my mom moved us north, and it was dirt roads and not really any skating, and I hated it at first, but that's what kind of got me into snowboarding. I'd had a snowboard when I lived in Montreal. I think I got my first one in, I think it was Christmas '88, I want to say. And it was like a black snow plastic, pretty much a toboggan with bindings. Used it a bit at toboggan hills and stuff, but it wasn't really till I kind of moved up north, and there was, my backyard was kind of hilly, and the neighbor's backyard and everything, and it was cottage country. So no one home in a lot of these homes. They were all summer homes. So pretty much turned the little neighborhood where we lived into my snow park, build jumps and wooden rails and stuff. And and that kind of, evolved into, I guess, a passion for snowboarding more. And I still skated a bit, and I picked it up again when I was maybe like 15 or so for a while, and then didn't do it for quite a while. And the first winter I moved out west, we had a really bad snow year. It was really good in the beginning, and then January just rained to the top for like 2 weeks, and then got really, really cold, and just everything was ice. And people made like a DIY underground, like a skate park in the underground parking. It was right across the street from where I was living, so I bought a board and started doing that again that winter. Did it for a couple more years, and had a knee surgery, and then kind of didn't skate after that. I always kind of still want to do it. Like I love it still when I see people doing it, and I love the sound of it. So I always should just have one just to roll around with. And there's a little park here too in Pemberton that I could probably cruise around, but should just bite the bullet and do it.
Yeah, I love how you say you like the sound of it. It's something that I haven't really like thought about, but do you hear, like, especially on like a wooden ramp, I can just hear it in my mind of like the bearings and wheels rolling.
Or for me, I feel like I grew up street skating. So for me, it's just like the sound of down a sidewalk when it clicks, when it goes over. Like I hear that, and especially the fall time for some reason. I really, I don't know if it's because of nostalgic time of year or what, but I used to love skating in the fall when it wasn't as hot, and falls aren't always nice in Quebec and stuff. And I always kind of get a craving to do it then.
But I was going to say maybe this fall's the time. So then, you're out in Whistler and you bought a DSLR or a point and shoot and possibly a DSLR. How'd you break into taking pictures, as a professional photographer? How did that journey start, and what was that like?
Yeah, once I had a camera, and I kind of would just shoot with some friends that were good riders, not necessarily sponsored or pro, but we're good and liked the process, like some of them were actually interested in photography as well, but also like being on the other side of the lens. And, it was kind of a trade-off. Like they would learn things about photography from being out there with me, and I'd get to shoot them knocking themselves, right? And then from there, just to be honest, I think it was like Facebook. I just reached out to writers that knew lived in Whistler and stuff, and just messaged them and see if any of them were down to go out and shoot. And at this point, it was all on resort, so just all on like Whistler Blackcomb. I didn't have a sled and a snowmobile yet, so kind of cut my teeth doing that, and could get stuff run in mags. A lot of the writers that I was shooting then were from New Zealand, and the mags there were like down to shoot stuff or to publish stuff that was shot on resort, because pretty much everything there is resort, or like they don't do snowmobile access stuff. Whereas, so it was maybe new to them still, like the imagery or the zones, but to try to get that run in like North American mags, it had been done like 15 years ago kind of thing.
Yep.
Um,
Everyone had already seen the spot or the
yeah,
gig or
exactly.
whatever.
They were kind of used. Everything's very backcountry focused, unless there was some major thing, but it could still get a few things run here and there. It was like there's always like resort guides, or even just selling stuff for like companies to use on their website and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of how I cut my teeth, and then once I got a sled, my first sled, I reached out to a bunch of riders, and that's usually the first question they have is like, "Oh, do you have a sled?" I was like, "Yeah, don't know how to use it yet, but yeah, I got one." So I went out a few times before going out with anyone to kind of at least go out and somewhat know what I'm doing. I mean, it's a pretty steep learning curve. Yeah, but then from there, some riders were down to let me tag along and shoot photos of them, and then it's try to sell them just to magazines and rider sponsors. And yeah, everything's always, well, then was just always shot on spec in hopes of selling
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is not as easy as it used to be, or I don't know if it's even viable as a career. I mean, just solely doing that. I mean, there's a few people that still do it, but they have staff positions in that, either with magazines or brands. So
I have, shot with several photographers that is shot on spec, and it's hard. It's really hard to get into any sort of magazines, even if you have the editors, like a good relationship with the editor,
yeah, and there's not as many magazines too, right, as there used to be, and
Yeah.
there's more photographers than there used to be.
Yeah,
For
totally.
now, I feel it's almost getting easier again, at least where I am. There's not as many magazines, but I think a lot of photographers have maybe moved on to other stuff, so it's kind of in demand again a bit to
Yeah.
get someone. I also feel maybe athletes, and this could just be me in my head, but I feel they maybe don't care as much about having a photographer out there as they used to.
Okay.
Maybe more video focused, and I mean it always was very heavy video focused, but I feel with like web series and you know and again social media and just posting stuff right away, like not even don't maybe need a photographer out there as much or want one, to be honest.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I mean, like if you're out there with your buddies and you've got your phones
Oh yeah.
take pretty dang good pictures, and
Yeah.
if it's just for the gram, if it's not getting published, if it
Yeah.
doesn't need to have, if you don't need to blow it up, and even some phone pictures, you can have a decent enough quality to get it to a decent size, but
Yeah, it's kind of thing you either evolve or die. Like either change with the times and figure out different ways to make an income through it, or just stop doing it because it's not going it's not going away.
yeah.
You can bitch and moan about it all you want, about changes and stuff, but it doesn't solve anything. And I think that's within the industry, if not just action sports photography, but I think a lot of photography kind of went through that phase where photographers were just bitch and moan about the industry and this and that and digital that and internet this, and it's not going away.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of photographers they kind of got disheartened by the state of the industry because anyone could go out and buy a nice camera and a nice lens and could take a good picture.
Yeah.
And photography has become a lot more accessible for the average everyday person to get a decent quality shot,
Totally.
and then I think it comes down to kind of in everything where it's not what it's who and forming relationships with people and forming good relationships with brands and athletes and
Yeah.
creating that support network to help you get your stuff out.
Yeah, and marketing yourself, reaching out, like not just sitting around waiting for the phone to ring, like you gotta definitely hustle and and think outside the box a bit too, not just which is kind of something I've been doing the last year or so, kind of rebranding what I'm doing a bit and not just focusing on snowboard companies per se, but other brands outside that industry are still interested in that type of imagery, right? Like using it for mutual funds company or whatever, right? Like the shot of someone out there doing something, right? It's kind of it's in, right? It's what people are doing. So brands other than action adventure sport brands, I think are interested in that type of imagery. So
Yeah, totally. Especially as millennials kind of come into a target market for a lot of industries that weren't really targeting millennials for a long time. And the whole millennial idealistic life of van life, going, traveling, soaking it all in, which I think everyone loves to travel or has, not everyone, but a lot of people have this idealistic utopian lifestyle of like, I'm going to travel around and do all these amazing things. And so, yeah, I think it's cool that like you're taking the opportunity to rebrand and just taking the skill that you've already developed and bringing it to other markets and industries, because like you said, you adapt or die. And I think that is in any industry. It's kind of crazy right now in the ski industry of like how many people can pull triples, and now quads are becoming a thing. And it's like, it's all about, like you said, marketing yourself and, marketing your story, your personality, who you are, your lifestyle, and kind of separating yourself a little bit to be unique in some way, shape, or form. It's important in any industry, like with social media. Marketing is always changing, even, Facebook ads, Facebook's changing their algorithm. Instagram is changing their algorithm. Like you always have to make these little adjustments. And if you're just bitching and moaning, like you said, you're just going to get stuck.
Yeah. You don't get anything done, right? It's just
a
waste of time. And for sure, I mean, we're all guilty of it. There's days where I, feel pissed off at everything, not everything, but everything in, industry or this or that. But
feel your emotions for a couple minutes and then get over it and get to work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where did I was looking into kind of what you're doing in this rebrand, and it seems like you've taken, you're taking more landscape shots and just overall nature shots. I know what you were doing beforehand was finding really epic landscapes and then, having a snowboarder in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But now it seems like you're focusing more and more on just the landscape and just the nature. So where did that come in? Is that just an evolution of everything?
I think it's something I've always done. I was really interested in like black and white landscape photography when I first got into photography. I mean, snowboarding kind of got me into photography, but then I was into that. And I think just where I lived, kind of rural and stuff, I would just go for walks with my camera, and I was into Ansel Adams and all those guys. And a lot of that had to do with, shooting black and white and doing your own developing and printing and everything too. So you're kind of in that world a bit. And I feel my action shots would be just as good if there was no rider in it. And that's something that I kind of always strive for. I feel it's maybe a bit more relatable, to someone who doesn't know what a 1080 is, or, what I mean? Like, it's just, they don't know or care. It's just, oh, it's a nice shot. And, oh, look, there's a person snowboarding there. Oh, wow. Like,
Yep.
And it helps put things in a context too, just for sheer size, and that when you pull back, and have the rider not so large in the frame, or the athlete, whether be a snowboarder or someone running or biking or whatever. Well, for a long time, I had the blinders on and was just very focused on snowboard photography. And I wouldn't even shoot that much in the winter and stuff. And there's quite a few years I would do like construction work in the winters, or in the summers rather, and save up enough money to take the winters off. Kind of got tired of that. This photography is what I want to do. So it's trying to do it more year round, and not just be so focused on snowboarding, and maybe missed, some opportunities by being like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just try to get into more things and going out and shooting like some like astro stuff and night photography and that. Pretty new to that, but I have a buddy who's really into it, and go out with him and he gives me pointers and stuff. And it's just cool to always be learning something. And that's a very slowed down, very opposite approach to snowboarding and stuff, right? Doing long exposures and, maybe coming back with 10 shots, from, being out there for 4 hours or something. So,
yeah, totally. Instead of a really short shutter speed, long exposure. And no, I love night photography. I love, You never know what you're going to capture. You never know when that shooting star is randomly going to, jet across the sky when your camera's pointed in that direction. And
yeah, it's cool to just even trying to compose in the dark. You don't really know, it's like trying to do things kind of half blind. Like you can kind of see, but you don't see the stars yet or what it's really going to look like. So it's definitely quite a bit of trial and error.
Yeah.
You're not going to really see what's going to be in the frame till you expose everything. And at least you have a bit of time, like, as far as, capturing shooting star or something like that, that's maybe a bit of luck, really.
Yeah, totally.
But, the Milky Way is going to be there for a bit when you're shooting it. So you can play around a bit. But
yeah, I love one of the things about long exposure night shots is like you get to see stuff that the naked eye can't, like when you expose it for long enough, you see depth in the Milky Way that the naked eye just can't at all. Yeah, man. Love night shots. And it's so peaceful out there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I'm more of a night person, not much of a morning person. So
yeah, I'm both, which is kind of a problem.
Yeah.
Mix it up.
Yeah, totally. What's been your favorite part of the journey so far, being a pro photographer, like traveling, just the people that you've got to meet? Is there a specific trip that you like reminisce on? You're like, that was the one, that was awesome? Or
yeah, I think just as a whole, just traveling and the views I've got to see, to be honest. Sometimes I'm more stoked on the sunset mountain shot that I got than any action shots of the day. I think because just the feeling that it evokes while being there at that moment at the end of the day, kind of, and watching the sunset from the top of the mountains, it's special for sure. Yeah, and the people, met some really good people, and it's still a process. Like it's still something that's evolving and still meeting people and still getting those cool moments and stuff. There's been a lot of hard times, but I try to just focus on the good. Can't have the good without the bad. So
yeah. What's been one of the hardest times, or one of the biggest quote unquote failures, or one of the biggest things that you're like, I would not want to relive that, but at least I pulled X lesson out of it? Or
I don't think I ever say I would not want to live that. I don't really regret anything. There was definitely, there was one season, I think it was 2015, bad snow year here. East Coast was getting hammered. Went to New Brunswick, East Coast of Canada, for a jib trip ended up being, I think, 3.5 weeks. Magazine was going to run it as a main feature. I think they selected 20 images, I smelt the cover coming out of it. Then I went to Alaska. Kids came back and it was just a horrible winter. Went to Alaska for a month, shooting from the heli and stuff, which actually shooting from the heli is also probably one of my favorite experiences. Just strapped in and pulling G's. If I could shoot like that all the time, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
It's a good time. Yeah. I just thought it was going to be the year, other magazines had selected, or the same magazine had selected a bunch from the Alaska trip. That summer they went bankrupt. It's pretty late in the summer. Couldn't sell the story, or sold a couple images, but couldn't sell the story. That was pretty much 3 months, or 3 weeks, almost a month, pretty much, of my season. Yeah, so none of the images from that got ran ever, other than what I posted to Instagram.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a bit of a kind of kick in the teeth. And I had a really good relationship with the magazine at the time too, and kind of felt, the momentum was there, and probably one of the hardest, I guess, career-wise, you could say. And it was a downer too. The mag had been around. The mag's up and running again now, but there was a year and a half where it was, someone else bought it and started it up again, and this and that. But that doesn't fix what happened, right? You can't go back. So,
how'd you pick yourself up after that? What was obviously, when you put a lot of work into something, it's rough.
Yeah, well, for the next winter, I was like, I can't keep doing this, shooting stuff on spec and then having things like this happen. Fortunately, those trips didn't cost me too much money. The magazine still reimbursed me for my flight and expenses and stuff. And the athlete sponsors had paid for my heli time and travel time to Alaska and that. So it was only kind of just food and whatnot, but you're going to spend that regardless where you are.
Yep.
But I wasn't going to do it unless unless I was getting compensated, whether it was by a brand, an athlete, a magazine. I decided I can't shoot on spec anymore. So one of the riders that I had shot with a lot was doing a video project the next year, and obviously wanted me to shoot with him. I told him I was down to, but I need X number of dollars a month to do it, or like, and even then, it's not breaking even, maybe a bit more, but it was an exorbitant amount. But we did that for a season, and that was cool to just have that, just be able to shoot all the time. It has pros and cons because you're guys kind of locked in, obviously, to a contract, and then also you're going out regardless, kind of thing. You're kind of on call because you're got a contract and
less freedom to chase other opportunities necessarily.
Yeah, like it was good in some ways, but then also the end of the season, when going to do my submissions to magazines, it's kind of like pretty much have a bunch of shots of one rider, whoever came out. Like it's not as diverse of a submission as I'd had in the past, where you have maybe a bunch of riders and no one's going to buy an entire catalog of one rider, right? Like it worked out okay, but I didn't do it the next year because I still couldn't do it for what I did, like financially. And like obviously it's passion and I love it, but I got bills to pay and got to make money, right? Like you get older too, and maybe 25 years old, ski bum, it's not, you don't care so much, but your bills change and you have goals and stuff. So
rent turns to mortgage.
Exactly.
You got relationship that you want to invest time and money and energy into as well,
totally. And it's just about being compensated for your time, paid for what you're worth, for what you're doing. It's the gear's not cheap, and add a truck and a snowmobile on top of that, which are two of the biggest tools really for shooting in the backcountry, especially where we are here in Whistler and the Sea to Sky. It's all about it, right?
So did you get your Avi certs before you went out with these athletes, or?
I'd already had just my AST1, it's called here. So I'd had that because I had a split board before I had a sled. And so I was into backcountry already a bit.
So I have so much admiration for photographers because you guys carry around like a heavy backpack that weighs, some cameras have gotten lighter, but weighs a ton. Plus you have multiple lenses, and that backpack probably can be, $10 to even $50 or plus $1,000. You're shredding around. So do you have any nutrition, fitness routines that you're doing? You guys are just as much athletes, you're just not throwing the tricks, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been, I wouldn't say always been, probably since I was 19, I got into, to training and eating healthier and stuff. And that's kind of always stayed with me. Yeah, I still go to the gym a fair amount, not as much in the winters because it's almost overkill. You had snowboarding and sledding and then gym, but I'll still do stuff at home. I, stretch regularly and big into rolling my back and IT bands and stuff like that, and just keeping everything jamming up. And I'll go to chiropractor and massage too, like every couple of weeks, just as maintenance. And just because you can only do so much yourself sometimes as far as stretching and that. I find that helps a lot. And nutrition wise, I eat clean, you could say, for sure. I find the biggest thing in the backcountry is just make sure you're drinking a lot of water when you're out there. I think a lot of people don't. It's cold, and you don't maybe think about it as much when it's hot in the summer, but just as important, if not more so. I can totally tell on days that I maybe didn't drink enough. Like that's how I feel the next day. I feel like hungover almost, just like So definitely hydration, and I just constantly snacking and staying fueled.
Totally. You have any morning or evening routines when you're, when you have those days, storms coming in, or, just in general, do you have any morning or evening routines that get you set up for the day? And obviously empty the card, reformat, charge batteries, everything there, make sure
all that stuff
packed. But
like the whole backpack and stuff. I'm really, about all that, having all that gear ready. I try to do as little in the morning as possible.
Yep.
I like to just get up and, sometimes it's really early yeah, so usually coffee, banana and a coffee first thing for sure. That's definitely a bit of my routine.
Yep.
And I always try to get some stretching in before going out and eat a good breakfast. And a lot of times I just have my stuff already in the truck, from the night before, ready to go. Yeah, I don't like, it's the worst forgetting stuff, especially sometimes you're driving maybe an hour to the trailhead, open your truck and your sled helmet and keys aren't there or something. So that's when routine's good, to not forget stuff if you're very routine about. I always pack my bags the same way. I know where everything is.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you, I've probably been out through, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 times when you bring the camera, because I've got like an Osmo stabilizer, and I've done a little bit of shooting, obviously no professional photographer, but you get out there and you go to shoot and no card and camera, like, oh, it's the worst.
Yeah.
Absolute worst.
Yeah. I always have a bunch of extra cards in my bag too, though. So yeah, I'm pretty good at routines. Or yeah, maybe to a fault, maybe a bit anal. I don't know, a bit OCD in ways, but I think a lot of photographers or creatives kind of are. I think you have to be.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like a painter likes to mix their, like watercolor painter likes to mix their paint in the same way, so that way they can get the predictable outcome of what's going to come out on paper, right? Rather than like willy-nilly, like you figure out what works. And I think the same thing goes for anyone. You figure out what doesn't work. You have successful discoveries of what doesn't work, aka failures, or and you weed that out, and then you get into the routine of what does work. So.
Yeah, and it's not overnight. It's over the years for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how much do you use artificial lighting in the backcountry? Do you use much artificial lighting, or like when are the cases where you use artificial lighting, or like what's one technique you use to overcome lighting challenges when you're out there?
I used to do it the odd time. It's just so much stuff to schlep out to the backcountry.
Yeah.
I would do it the odd time if it was something specific that I knew we were going to shoot, and I knew like it's storming, or it's or it's in the shade or whatever, and I know, but I never would just bring it like, oh, in case I need it. It was always kind of for more planned things, like maybe we found something and built it the day before, and then I know I'm like, okay, I'm going to shoot this with flashes tomorrow, so I'm going to bring out the flash gear. But I can count on one hand the amount of times that I've brought out the gear. Yeah, ideally I love shooting in natural light, and when the light is good. That's another thing. I'm only going out if it's looking good. I'm not going to sit around in the clouds, which I've done a lot of for sure.
Sitting around hoping.
Yeah, but I say that, but sometimes, when you do get that, just, that one, hole in the cloud and everywhere else isn't, and the light is, you can't plan for that. I do like some cloud and some mood, when it's just a blue sky. Sometimes don't get me wrong, it's great, but it doesn't add the same, like depth almost in texture and mood to an image. Yeah, as far as shooting with strobes and stuff, yeah, like I said, I'd count on one hand, like other than urban stuff, but backcountry, yeah, I'd much rather prefer. And I feel that with the new cameras too, the dynamic range they have, you'll think the light's bad, and then or the image looks flat, and then you can upload it on your computer and you can see what you can really pull out of an image, as long as the writer's not wearing black too. It helps. And then sometimes, a lot of times the image just doesn't work, and it could be for that reason, because the light's just not there.
Yeah.
And it could be cool on video, I think, because it's moving and it's, it's not the static image that you're just staring at. But feel a static image, I definitely like good light.
Well, speaking of what athletes wear and everything, what are some some recommendations, or like some things that you would highlight as like ways for athletes to work well with photographers? Because you gotta, you create that chemistry and relationship, and like when that relationship clicks, you can have a lot of amazing images that come out. Obviously, it has to do with lighting, it has to do with weather conditions, it has to do with everything like that. But forming that athlete photographer or athlete creative relationship, I think, is important, and it can really make or break a lot of the photos. So,
I mean, I think, depending on what level of athlete you're dealing with, the brighter colors and stuff. I mean, it doesn't have to be neon green. It's not, it's not that, early 2000s, 80s comeback, but red is always good, or yellow, nothing crazy, but I think, higher level athletes are already used to that and know that. Always let them see the image too, if they want, if they're trying something or going to hit something again, so they can see how it's looking, because they might want to be something they want to change up. They're almost more critical than I am a lot of times, to be honest, because I'm looking maybe more at the image as a whole. And I'm looking at I see the photographic elements a bit more, but they're really looking at their style. So a big thing for snowboarding is if you have that other arm kind of poked out, not like bent and kind of awkward looking, it's almost an exaggeration, but because on image, it's not going to look as exaggerated. So just, like really kind of tweaking things out, I think helps a lot. The right trick for the angle. Yeah. And that kind of works on both, right? Because the photographer could find an angle for the trick, but not always, right? So sometimes it's maybe just not working. And a lot of times an athlete, they'll get it for the shot for the video, and then they'll do something photo friendly, slowed down more, like not as many rotations, nice tweaked out, like 180s, 360s, 540s. As far as snowboarding, I think is good. Anything more than that, and it looked great on video, but as a still image, it's not as stylish.
Yeah, and there's less opportunity to hit that perfect frame, and like you get the cameras are getting higher frames per second at, every year, but still, like sometimes it's right in between frames is exactly what you wanted. And so like the slower that you can hit the spin, the longer time you have grabbing, the more tweaked out it is, the more opportunity you have to get the shot.
Yeah. And sometimes it can be something even simpler, I should say, not just so much about that big action shot, it could just be a slash on a windlip that's backlit and, it's just photographically, to me, often those, maybe because it's more relatable, everyone can turn or almost everyone, right? Where not everyone can, it's inspiring, but it's not as relatable sometimes as just like a nice pow slash or kind of more that feeling of riding powder, and something that everyone can relate to a bit more than someone doing triple corks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why every skier does the one turn, the hip dump with the hand up and the pull out. And I mean, it does make it more relatable, and it is, it's what a lot of people are chasing in skiing or snowboarding is, skiing POW and having that experience of what it's like to, have it be, like need your snorkel or whatever. And I think the one turn is overplayed in skiing, but
that's one thing I notice. Like a lot of ski magazine covers very often that kind of one turn tight shot, and in snowboarding, it's never that. Like it's rare that you would even see a shot like that run, let alone a cover shot. Yeah, but it's just different. It's different marketing, I think.
What do you think is like the difference between the industries that creates that different type of marketing? Like, what would you say, like the core values that dictate that type of marketing difference?
I think skiing is maybe still a broader range of, I don't say clientele, but essentially
the demographic is
exactly. Larger demographic, both in age and maybe skill set and like style.
Yeah,
as well. I mean, there's a lot of styles in skiing. Snowboarding, not. I mean, snowboarding had, but it's not as vast, I feel, as skiing.
Yeah, totally.
Not yet. Maybe as the sport gets older, it will kind of keep growing as older people still snowboard and stuff. But
yeah, I remember this video of cross country snowboarding, and it just there's just so many more aspects of skiing. Like you have ski jumping, and like obviously you have racing and snowboarding, but like skiing, you have ski jumping, racing, moguls, all these kind of, it branches out more. And snowboarding, like there's no Nordic jumping on a snowboard, there's no cross country. So there's no
and the sport is just been around a lot longer too, right? In the mainstream, as far like skiing has been around a lot longer, and for a long time snowboarding was not mainstream or not accepted even, right? Like it's still young as far as sports go, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, like I think that there are still some resorts out there that don't allow snowboarding.
Yeah, I don't know if Alta, do they allow yet? Or
Yeah, I don't know if Taos does now.
I can remember when I first started snowboarding that we could only go on a couple of runs at the resort, and we had to prove that we could turn and stop the thing before they would let us go up the chairlift. You have to get
Yeah.
like certified. Yeah.
That's crazy. And then there was like the reversal of a lot of skiers weren't allowed in terrain parks at first.
Yeah, they were called snowboard parks, not terrain parks. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's crazy. It's crazy, the evolution of the sport. It's awesome. It's awesome where we're at now.
Oh, sliding sideways or sliding on snow, right? Like it's not.
Yeah. Right.
We're not so different.
No. And people take it so seriously. I think it's mellowed out a little bit. Yeah. Or maybe just like the people that I'm hanging out with. I
think it depends on the age of the people. I think older people still have that, dam borders style, and older snowboarders maybe still have that stupid skiers kind of.
You get jaded.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, anytime you're out on, I think it's just like a sport that breeds a slight level of jadedness, just snow sports in general. Cool. Just a couple more rapid fire questions and then I'll let you get on with your day. Where's your favorite place you've ever traveled with skiing, snowboarding?
I guess it's hard to narrow it down to one because there's definitely a few for different reasons.
Or list off a couple.
Yeah, like Japan for the bottomless pow every day.
Yeah.
The culture, just the whole experience. Alaska, Haines, where I've been, and just for the history that's there. Flying over, seeing all these lines that have been in copious amounts of movies and magazines over the years, and obviously just the terrain there is unreal, and the whole heli experience, and just Alaska as a whole, the kind of still a bit the wild frontier, right? Or like it's definitely a different place. It's probably those two stick out the biggest. And to be honest, where I live is really pretty special and definitely spoiled in a lot of ways. You take things for granted. And you realize it when you maybe talk to people elsewhere, how good you have it, and the sheer amount of terrain that we have, snowmobile accessible terrain.
Yeah.
It's endless. Our snowpack, fairly stable, more so than a lot of ranges. So when it's good, it's good.
Yeah.
When it's not good, it's not. That applies to anywhere.
When it's not good, it's raining.
Yeah, exactly.
What's one piece of advice you'd pass along to someone who wants to do what you've done, make, photography a profession?
Well, if they're doing the school route, I would say major in business and minor in photography.
Love it.
Photography, to be honest, it's the easy part. And if it's the hard part, then maybe you shouldn't be a photographer. Because obviously you got to have a knack for it and an eye for it. And I think that is, it's something that can be taught and learned, but you definitely got to have that, like anything, that bit of natural talent, or else you probably won't pursue it. But definitely the business side, which is something I didn't learn. I think I had one business, a photography class, and it was 14 years ago at this point. So a lot's changed since then. So I'm very much self-taught in that aspect and still learning, always learning.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I'm good with that. I like learning from your mistakes. I guess another big thing would be if it's truly what you want to do, you can't half-ass it.
Yeah.
Like anything, you got to make sacrifices. Especially if you want to shoot snowboard or ski photography, that can mean, not you doing those pow turns and, you're on the other side taking the photos of it, but it still beats sitting at a desk or.
Totally. Yeah. I think that business side of anything, like being a professional athlete, you have to understand business because you have to understand how to present yourself to a brand and market yourself and make yourself a viable asset to them more than just, that's how you get funded. That's how you get the money for the projects. And
I think now more so than ever, like, I think, there used to be maybe more like, team managers and stuff like that who are maybe taking care of that. But I think everyone almost has to be an entrepreneur now, and yourself is the brand, and you gotta sell that and market it and get people to want you.
Totally. Have you had one piece of encouragement or wisdom that you received that stuck with you that, if you're, having some resistance or something that has helped you day in and day out throughout the years?
Yeah, I think it was when I was doing my second non-credit course. It was like black and white photography, and I remember, the teachers were all working photographers, and I mean, it should have been a red flag then that they're teaching for for some money. But I had one photographer, or teacher rather, and no one was really into snowboard photography, and I kind of told him that that's what I wanted to do, and I think I even showed him the magazine, and he looked at it and stuff, and he was just like, if that's what you want to do, then do it, and eventually the money will come in. He said, don't worry about the money. If that's what you want to do. If that's where your heart is, then do it. Yeah, and I think about that quite often.
Totally. If you're doing it just for the money, I don't think you last in any of the outdoor industries.
No.
Unless you're a C-level exec or something.
Yeah, or even photography in general. Or it's all work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like even people are like, oh, you can just go be a wedding photographer. But that's a lot of work too. It's the same thing. You still gotta market yourself. There's still business side. It's a bit easier to get paying work because it's a bit more mainstream, obviously, and more but even that, and there's a lot of people doing that too, and there's competition, and nothing's easy. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Yeah, totally. 100%. Yeah. If you could have one significant impact in the world, what would it be?
I'd love to have an image that could resonate with enough people to change something major. It's a bit big. I don't know what. There was a period I remember when I was in school that I was really into, like Mary Ellen Marks and documentary photographers and those old war photographers whose images I think made a difference, right? And I have crazy respect for war photographers, but I realized that as much as I love photography, I'm not going to die for it. But I still feel, it's cool shooting snowboarding or action sports and this and that. There's a lot wrong out there and a lot that could need to be changed. And if somehow my imagery, and again, I don't know what specifically, but one day if, some of my imagery could help better something.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that photography, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. And then when you add a story in behind it and, you allow that photojournalism to paint the story of a truth that maybe not many people are looking at, like people who take photos of like the coal trains and their effect on the environment. And, because they're routes where no one's really out there to see the effect on nature or stuff like that. One image can completely, when it's seen by enough people, it can cause a movement change, change the world.
Yeah. So there's one actually Canadian photographer, Edward Bertinsky, and he does aerial like landscapes, large format of how we're changing the earth. Mm-hmm. So at first you'll see this image from far and you think it's like some beautiful landscape, and you get closer and you realize it's like the oil pits in Alberta or something like that. And it's crazy, especially them shot from above, right? You really see how we're changing the earth.
Yeah.
So like those images really, I find really powerful and really kind of resonated with me. I got to see them in person a couple of times. So yeah.
I love that contrast when you can see something from so far away that it looks really beautiful, and then you start to put the pieces together and you see like the impacts,
Yeah, you realize those, beautiful colors from afar were actually, just oil or sulfur or something that's,
not as beautiful as once.
Yeah, it's hard because it is beautiful, but you know what I mean? The image as a whole is beautiful, but maybe the context of it isn't.
Yeah, totally. I think that's one of the really cool things about creative expression, whether it is painting or photography or film, where you get to see things from different angles. And then, depending on the angle that you see it in, it changes the context of the situation. And it's kind of very representative of the world and the human experience, because, you may be so opinionated and think that you're so right in some way, but then you adjust your point of view by just a little bit, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, like my logic had a major hole in it. One of the amazing things about art in general. Do you have a favorite travel tip or hack?
Yeah, just I think more as a photographer, I think one thing they can do is, like reach out to tourism boards if you're going somewhere and see if you can do something while you're there. Tourism boards have money. They need to spend that money. That's something I'm kind of getting into as well and starting to realize. I realized a few times with snowboard trips, never underestimate the power of a well-composed email.
Yeah.
A bunch of dirtbag snowboarders going, but they'll put you up in 5-star hotels because you're going to give them some exposure and it's cool what you're doing. And yeah, that definitely can help a lot with saving money if you're going to travel anyway and you're going to be shooting photos anyway. So you might as well try to sell them or even trade for, accommodation. And
love it. Where's the best place for people to find you?
I guess nowadays it'd be Instagram. It's at Todd Easterbrook, all one word.
Yep.
After that, just the website, which is www.toddeasterbrook.com. Not as active on Facebook as I used to be honest, since they changed their algorithms and everything. And anything that I post there, it's pretty much just straight link from Instagram. So,
well, sweet, man. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
If I'm ever up in Pemby or if you're ever in Colorado, definitely hit me up.
Yeah.
I'd love to make it out and get some turns in together, hang out, whatever, show you around. And
I should get down to Colorado. I should go to the SIA. I say it every year, but I always think of it too late. And I have a snowboard rack sponsor, and he's out of Colorado, so I should probably go down and meet him one day.
Yeah, totally. Make that face-to-face connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you're down here, I'd love to show you some restaurants, go shred around. If we end up taking some photos or whatever, that'd be sweet. Yeah. But, whatever it is, yeah, I appreciate you taking the time for sure.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Hey, just one more thing before you go. I wanted to say thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope that you really enjoyed it. A couple things that I would ask that you do if you enjoyed today's episode. Number one, go follow us on Instagram at The Athletic Stance Podcast. Number two, if you don't mind leaving a review, rating it, and subscribing, it always helps. It helps spread the word. It helps me know what you guys are enjoying or not. And if you don't mind leaving a comment on Instagram, letting me know what you're enjoying, what you're not enjoying, I will always take into consideration. And feel free to send me a message with recommendations on who you'd like to hear from, what you'd like to hear us talk about. And as always, thank you so much for listening, for your time, and we'll see you next time at the Athletic Stance Podcast.